Like, we have to always be pushing and selling and thinking about the next project. We have to always bring in new business. And I think there is a level of comfort when you have work. It's comfortable, like you have work. We got projects right now. Or when if you do admin, you're comfortable. Like, I've got jobs, I feel really productive, I've got them all done. But there is this uncomfortable side of business that you have to almost keep doing, which is how are we pushing? What are we doing? And so I try to build that culture in our teams, like always be pushing. What are we pushing on the next thing? And I think that's slowed down a little bit at times, but always kind of keep going. But so that's a bit about the pushing. Where we are now? Sorry, I've got it. Okay, so we go into the next one, 2015. So we are now 2015, 2016. I've kind of gone into a little bit of proving. So I hired two people. One from an organization that's actually here, and within 2 months, I had to let one go. And that was because we just weren't ready to hire. We hired a developer, and that developer is now my lead developer. We have 3 developers in the team. And he came in and just completely, changed the way everything was being developed because I was coding a lot of the stuff. And so, I hired a designer. We had a board that we had all this interested work. And so this board was filling up. And so we started making some decisions, and I'm not hiring as a gift as well. I wasn't too good at it then. So we hired a developer and a designer. But the thing is a lot of that work didn't close. Over the years, it's like you learn, and until it's in, it's not in. And so, I have that right now. Like, we can be right until that first payment is in, or whatever it is, however you do business. So, it was a tough one, and to kind of take a jump and then take a little bit of a step back. But we were still kind of going. I don't think the agency was working. It's hard to in these early years, the type of clients, the budgets you need to work to, budgets people have. Bespoke is a real problem. And what I mean by that is when I started the agency, one of our selling points, which is still now, is our design, and our level of design has got to be the highest it can be, and it's got to be bespoke, right? The problem is how do you make a business model out of a bespoke thing, out of creative? So if anyone in here as a business is in the creative sort of sector, like art, like it's art essentially, like how do you price that? It's so difficult. And so projects would run over and the client would come with the can you only justs, and remember can the only just kill us? I should write that on my wall when the client at the end goes, could you just build 5 extra pages on this website and add all this functionality? Like, yeah, no worries, we'll do that today. Like, they kill, and put in briefs. And so one thing was, we were, not reusing. So now we have great systems in place where we have such bespoke design, but there is a level of code that you've developed or systems you've developed to make that more streamlined. I've not nailed that in the creative. It's so difficult in the creative to really, price a job, win the job, because I'm sure a lot of you are in businesses where you're like, this is what it should be, but I'm going to price here because I can't lose this client. And that's quite a common thing. So, I went through a bit of a phase there. We moved offices a few times, and I'm talking with the back of somebody's office and all this stuff, and the question is, this isn't working. I remember one time putting a deadline saying, unless we hit this, we prove this works by this day, like, we're done, we're stopping, And I'm pretty tired by this point. I remember, like I said, I did every job. I would go to London to meet like a new client, sell them like, hey, this is what we do, like, want to work with you, and they'd be like, impressed. I'd win the job, come home for dinner. My wife would be like, you won the job? I'd be like, yeah. And then I'd have to go to the office till midnight and design because there was no designer there that day because I'm still the designer. So it just, if you're in this, it's quite common. It takes time and businesses grow. So the problem, this is kind of what we got here. So So the next slide. Okay, so this is kind of what I worked out one time I drew on the whiteboard. I thought, this is my agency in the middle. And the thing is, we keep winning all these clients, right? And it's like going really well. We've got clients, we're really busy. And then you go to the next slide, real simple. Eventually, those clients disappear, yeah? And so if you are if you're a plumber or a builder, you go to the next one, you need the next one, and eventually those clients disappear. And so I'm like, if we continue to operate like this, which is fine, we still now have clients, and we don't have sometimes, and we're busy, but I'm growing a team here. I've got people's wages to pay. I've got families that depend on our success of our business. So it kind of came to me, I guess, is if you go to the next slide, well, what if I owned some of those clients? was my thought. What if I owned them? And then when we're quiet, we just work in-house. It's quite a common thing, I think, for agency now to be spinning up their own projects. But also just knowing that actually maybe those projects are better. Now, by this point, I think yeah, that's it. So if you go to the next slide, like the pivoting. So I'd helped a few people, Way Ice Cream, phenomenal. I think they just sold to Iceland, but they're all around the world now, 5 minutes, I better hurry up. So I'd helped another company, if he ever sees this, I know him well, but giving people ideas. There's a company called Battle Oats. They were protein bar, Battle Bites. They're in Home Bargains. He sold for 7 figures. And I'd helped all these people. So I was kind of a little bit like that point, okay, how do we productize and how do we do maybe we should do our own project or our own product. And so and a few other things I'll skip, but like the pricing model. So if you go to the next one, so how do we turn services into products? How do we turn a creative service into a product? How do we turn much more? Even venture camps? Like venture camps is we renamed from High Five Sports to venture camps. That's a whole world because I realized we didn't want to be a sports coaching company. We wanted to be a camp company. And the area of childcare and camps was actually a bigger, more of a better model than, say, football coaching, even though we do all those things. I always say to the team there, we want to be like the Center Parks of camps, So if kids come to our camps, we have pedal carts, Nerf guns, Zorbs. We went full beans on we're going to be the best there. But pop back. So let's talk about Keto. So about 2018, I thought I'm going to do my own project here. I've done it for other people. By this point, I'm just looking and waiting and thinking. Actually, in our church, loads of people are on keto. If you hear that, we're saying I'm on keto, doing keto and the diet. And so I thought maybe there's something here. Now I've got quite a lot of experts, e-commerce, Amazon. By this point, I'm able to do keyword research to what is successful on Amazon, and there's a real opportunity here. Boom, in keto. I'm able to, by this point, I've got real network with recipe developers. My recipe developers were, in fact, a plant-based recipe development company. So I started working with them. I got a good deal to develop what is our keto bar, and we kept it vegan. So we got a double trend. So there was times, if we would have nailed it early, I'm going a bit faster and I'm running out of time. If we would have nailed it early, I think we'd be a lot bigger right now. But it took some time to really, if you choose to eat them, because if you go for basically a high-fat bar, most health bars are bound together by fruit. So we had issues with binding, we had issues with shelf life and just all that stuff. If you are, I can't go into it now, but if you are thinking about doing a food product or anything like that, I kind of have a bit of a recipe for that. Do think about whether you can store it ambiently. Do think about your shelf life. Do think about whether you can grow online. So I had all this kind of checklist in place from how other people have done. And I knew when we launched this, we wanted to grow online and go fast. We launched 2019 December, Keto, did a pallet run with our manufacturer and sold out on Amazon in about 3 weeks. So we're an Amazon bestseller now. If you go to type keto bar on Amazon, we sell 40, 50 boxes a day in the UK. And so I'll share a little bit there. Just, I know the time's against me. There was a time with venture camps or High Five, we were really priced in too low. And it got to a point where we were full up and we're making no money. Now I took it off a guy who was charging sort of £14 a day, which is just ridiculous for childcare. The big companies in Oxford are doing £40, £50 a day. I got to a point with this company, and again, it's these kind of moments where I just said, we have to price here or we don't have a business. And I remember making those jumps to go, this is where we are. I won't have a lot of time to go into Teach Sport. We are spinning up a project with that team where we are educating and training people to become qualified in teaching, like coaching. Just a little bit on that, the reason for that is because it has bigger leverage, right? So my guys who work for me, they go into schools right now, but what if they were able to go online and teach 20, 30 students? Well, why not teach 50, 60, 70, 80 students, 100 students? And so that actually is something where we're starting to develop. We've got about 25 people on the course, and you can check that out. It's a .co as well, teachsport.co. So we're actually just spinning that up, but I won't get much time to go into that. But I think, so where are we now? I'm 8 years of this entrepreneurial crazy journey. I would never do it again. I would do it again, but if you said to me, like, hey, you're now a teacher, I've got a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old, quit, I'd be like, oh, forget that. Like, it was really painful at times. It was. And it's a mad one to have. I've got 14 staff. Just took on someone who's now doing finance across the companies, which is just a mad thought, you know. The thought of even paying, I think 4 of our staff, I pay more than I ever earned in a job, you know, and we took on senior designers, and they've been in agencies, and, you know, because a lot of the time you feel like, I have no idea what I'm doing right now, and I'm here, you know. It's a very normal imposter syndrome feeling. I'll go back to the next one. So keto is, and I've written an article about it, so I don't mind. So keto turned over about 700,000 last year. So it's become a bit of its own whale in a sense. If you go on a website called Young Foodies, it talks about the journey of a food brand, and it starts to crack at this point because we're now getting into sort of the size, you know, where we're exporting and distribution all across Europe. So we're in an investment stage, which so if you have just near £1 million you'd like to invest, come speak to me at the end. That's, you know. And but we have a whole kind of growth model for that, and it's mad, really. Like, I was a PE teacher, you know, that turned designer. I know how to grow brands online. I really do. We've done it for the likes of the Turmeric Co., which is one of our has a little turmeric shop. That's run by a professional footballer, Robson Carnu, the guy who scored the Welsh. Yeah, good friend of mine. So I work for him. But yeah, and just to finish, so that's where we are, and our agency is continuing to grow, and our venture council continues to grow. But yeah, so just to finish, yeah, like closing thoughts. If you're doing an online business, just to throw it in there, like if you're welcome to talk to me, like finding an angle, Amazon, e-commerce, Facebook ads, and all that. I know you've got to have an angle. Sometimes people try to launch a food online and it doesn't work, you know. I really believe in the power of brand and design. I think everything we do, even our venture camps flyers, like, they're just lovely, you know, and a kid there in a Zorb. And yeah, if you're doing a bespoke service, I really encourage you to look at it and how you can productize it and how you can turn it into how we make more money per hour in the creative. You know, if you're building, and that's the labor leverage. You know, labor's not the best leverage. You can only have so many people working at so much time. How do you move into more of a product? And how do you move more into, I mean, the best leverage is a software, right? So you build a software and it makes money for you non-stop. We're kind of doing that a little bit with Teach Sport. Yeah, and that's it. That's kind of it, really. And I think on one of the slides you'll see I just realised I put the Shopify logo. Also niching down. Our agency is niched more now. We do a lot of Shopify e-commerce for people. We made a decision. This is what we do. So like, if you go on our website, we look like we handle food and drink, and we handle e-commerce and Shopify. We actually work with lots of non-profits, lots of Christian organizations. That's just not what we market. We niche down. So in your business, niching down. But I hope that, and then finally, the last P, it's not easy to do business. I was just speaking to someone at the start, like I have, like I said, 14 people's wages are based on my decisions. I can't just go and make big, crazy decisions sometimes. But it hasn't been too easy, and there's been some real times in this where I was like, I think the level of burnout from doing this, and I remember having some real times where my mind just wasn't functioning right because I was in a computer every day, just making it happen, making it work. I've come through that, and waking up very anxious, and just like, so if you've had that, it's not unusual, and just being patient in it. And so, but your capacity does increase to pressure. It really does. When we started, the wage bills were $2-3 grand a month or whatever it was. Now it's 30, whatever. Things happen. And even now, like, we've got this product, we're making these jumps, things happen. And real transparent, I'm just about to go on holiday to Cyprus, my last point, and a big food distributor went into administration. So if anyone's in food and drink, a big food, they owed me a good 5 figures, they're called Tree of Life, and they supplied more. So our bars in Morrison's and Whole Foods and Planet Organic, and they went into administration. So you get thicker with it, and I'm going on holiday, and I'm like, forget, I'm not going to ruin my holiday, and you learn to pivot, and it just kind of, you become a lot thicker, and maybe a few years ago, if that would have happened, it would have really taken me out. But now it's like, I think there's a real advantage to spreading the weight over the businesses. But yeah, so that's my story, and do go on Keto. I'll give you a discount code if you want. Not I need it, but thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. All right.
Ian, thank you so much. That is incredible. Really, that's a massive jump. So if you're thinking of making a jump, there you go. Some lessons there to glean from. Now, some of you have been sitting since 9 o'clock, and we do need to get the blood flowing. So if you don't mind, let's just stand up, shake it off, move around a little bit, okay? Yeah? Some of you are even on the verge of falling asleep, so just shake, 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 walk around, get some blood flowing again before we welcome the next speaker. And it's a bit cold in the room as well. I mean, I'm always cold anyway, but yeah, shaking should help a little bit. Yeah? Brilliant. Yep, some of you are shaking, warming up. It's great. We are going to have a break at 11 o'clock, so this is just a mini break to get the blood flowing. Are we okay? Ready? Yeah? Okay. So, we're going to welcome our next speaker. He is an award-winning entrepreneur and the founder or chief executive of the Wonderful Group. What a fantastic name for a business. A diverse group of companies with a common mission to deliver lasting change in lives, businesses, and communities. He is a mentor and advisor to many of London's tech incubators and a regular keynote speaker on digital technology, innovation, and business growth platforms. He is also the founder of the Wonderful Foundation, a not-for-profit organization that supports sustainability and growth of community projects globally. Let's welcome with some applause, Dan Modeb, MD of Wonderful Creative Agency.
I was kind of laughing because I was thinking, who wrote that bio? Because it wasn't me. Whoever wrote that, thank you very much. It's all true, but I didn't write it. It sounds very good. Welcome, everyone. I know we've had a lot of amazing input. So very quickly, you've heard 9 Ps. So Simon had 4 and Ian had 5. So out of all your Ps, I want you to very quickly, for 1 minute, what P stood out to you, just in the tables? Just for 1 minute, get a bit chatty. What one P can you implement? One P. If you can remember one out of those 9. Just very, very quickly before we start. I know what these events are like. You get so much information, so often you don't have time to process it. So, yeah, just any P's that are coming out of you. No, that sounds really wrong. Please delete that from the recording. I did not say that on stage. You're not doing, okay, good. What I want to talk about, just for the next few minutes, we're a little bit short on time. I want to just talk about kind of quite a big shift, I think, that's happened in business, and a big shift that the organisations that I'm involved with have gone on over the last couple of years. Quick show of hands. In 2019, can you remember, quick show of hands, who can remember like 2019? It feels like a lifetime ago, right? Who used to work hybrid in 2019? Probably 10% of the room. Anyone was remote workers in 2019? 2, 3, 4, so what? Less than 5% of the room. Who here works hybrid or remote now? 60, 70% of the room. There's a shift. Who here had heard of the Great Resignation in 2019? I'm trying to get you. One guy, do you work in the press? Because that's a great press statement. Who here had heard of quiet quitters? That's the latest one. Quiet quitters in 2019. Well, I mean, to talk to you afterwards because you seem to know a lot about what this is brilliant. But 2019 to 2022, our business language has changed. The way that we work has changed. And I think there's been some real fundamental shifts that I'm going to have to talk from my own experience in the businesses that I run and I'm involved with. But there's been such a big shift. And I think that without getting too big picture and going over the whole COVID scenario and the war that was a scenario we're in, I mean, it's been such a huge shift. And I think that one of the biggest shifts for many brands and many leaders, so I'm going to talk to you as you're a leader. Put your hands up in this room if you're a leader. Why were some people's hands down? We're all leaders. We've all got a responsibility to lead ourselves, and that is where leadership starts. So I'm going to talk to us all for the next 23 minutes. It's 10:37. Next 23 minutes as leaders, because it's so important that as we grow and we develop and we move with that shift, everything around us grows. So there's a real famous phrase, I think it's a John Maxwell phrase, when the leader grows, everyone grows. So I want us to put our leadership hat on for the next few minutes as we go through this talk. Now, if you go on to the next slide, please, King. Okay, yeah, that's a little bit about me. There was a wonderful intro there. I'm the CEO of the Wonderful Group. We're a diverse group of companies, and we've got a real common mission to deliver lasting change, we call it, in people's lives, communities, and businesses. So it's lived out through a bunch of different organizations. We have a digital agency, a co-working and accelerator space, leadership community, an investment fund, and not-for-profit. And all of that ecosystem is designed to deliver lasting change. So everything we do, our North Star is bringing change. We refuse to do anything that we can't see a change. And that really drives what I'm going to talk about today. And I really want to hope in the next few minutes that you'll get a real fresh vision and a fresh kind of conviction for another P. So let me just stop here. I've sat here for an hour. I got here a little bit late. I've sat here for an hour and a half, and I've heard 9 Ps. And no one's covered my 1 P. Yes, but I've only got 1 P because I'm a simple guy. I've got 1 P, and we'll talk about later on. And it's linked to this shift that I keep talking about. And I don't know about you, and I'm not going to make a statement about the monarchy or a royalist statement, but I thought the Queen's passing was an incredibly tragic and sad event, but an incredibly momentous event. We celebrated the life of someone who'd lived an extraordinary life, but a life of purpose. That's my P, by the way. So a life of purpose. She'd lived her life and she was celebrated by over 4 billion people on that day for the life that she led. Not so much the individual things that she did, not so much, none of it. Well, put your hands in the room if you met the Queen. So no one here has met the Queen. Did someone put a hand up? Oh, well, amazing. Love to hear that story. So one lady there has met the Queen, but most of us don't know the Queen. Yet we sat glued, watching the TV, celebrating a life of purpose. And I want to ask you this question. And I want to make a statement, actually, and it's a little bit of a morbid statement, but I don't mean it to be morbid. But the honest truth is, we're all going to end up in the place where Queen Elizabeth II ended up. Now, it's a bit of a morbid statement. But the real question is, how do we want to live? And I think that's such a fundamental question that so many people have been asking over the last couple of years. The impact on COVID in terms of our personal lives, if you've had it and gone through it, in terms of your physical health, the emotional health, the mental health impact, the relational impact. I don't want to go into stories, I haven't got time, but I've got so many stories of the negative impact that COVID has had on people's lives. Then we look at the political scenario, let's just say, we've been in for the last couple of years. Then we look at the sort of geopolitical scenario that we're in terms of the war, the economic scenario, the social scenario. Then we wonder why we've got people going through the Great Resignation and quiet quitters. People are asking questions. And as leaders, whether we're leading ourselves, whether we're leading in an organization, whether we're leading teams, we've got to ask ourselves some real fundamental questions. I really, really believe that. And the next statement I want to just pull up is an interesting phrase from Socrates, who was quite a wise man. But the secret of change is not, I'm paraphrasing, is not to focus on the old, but to build the new. And I don't know about you, but I found it a real struggle as a business leader over the last couple of years to work out, what do I take of the old? But I used to do it this way. Everyone used to be in the office. I used to service clients this way. I used to build my teams this way. But there's a whole new way. I've got my lead designer now lives in Manchester, and my head of digital now lives in near Cambridge, and my head of tech lives in the Isle of Wight. But they're not in the office together. What do I do? How do I manage it? And it's so easy for us as leaders, as individuals, to try and hold on to the old, to try and focus on the old, to try and do business and do life the way we used to do it in 2019. But maybe you have experienced this and maybe you haven't experienced this, but people are now voting with their feet. People are moving. People are quitting. People are changing industries. In the main industry that I work in, which is the tech and marketing space, the average job marketing role used to be 18 months, then it went to 14 months, now they reckon it's less than a year. People are getting poached on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. My staff are getting poached all the time because they're good staff and well trained and paid well. But it's kind of, the world has shifted. Your leadership and my leadership has shifted. Our lifestyles have shifted. How many of you now do more virtual meetings than you ever did before? How many of you, like now when you come to an event like this, you're like, oh, I've got to go out and put some trousers and a shirt on, and I wear trousers and a shirt every day, to have you know. Quick show of hands, who's done a Zoom call with jogging bottoms underneath and haven't shown people on camera? Come on, be honest. Would you have ever gone to a business meeting in 2019 in jogging bottoms? Don't put your hands up. But you see, everything shifted. And I believe as businesses, we've got a responsibility to shift with it. And I actually believe the business community is always at the heartbeat and should be at the heartbeat of what good and authentic leadership should look like. Because we are employing people, because we are delivering services and products, because we are dealing with financial transactions. We are shifting the economy. We put so much emphasis on Boris and Liz and all the people to shift economies. It's our responsibility actually to shift economies. We are the ones that are at the cutting edge of what's happening in society around us. And I really believe that part of that shift comes down to the one P we're going to talk about today, which is purpose. So we're going to the next slide. Oh, we're out of slides. There we go. This is the 1P. And I want to talk to you just for a few minutes around purpose. And I'm going to come at it from a couple of different perspectives, because it's very easy to look at purpose. And, you know, for transparency, I've been in business many years now. I've got a teenage boy, and my oldest boy was 13 today. Can you believe it? Yeah, I was a teenage dad. I'm joking, I wasn't. But, you know, we can look at purpose, and, you know, you can read that word and you can interpret it in so many different ways. And being honest with you, I've seen purpose when in my younger years in business as something you do when you've got a bit of cash. When I've got a bit of money, I'll be able to help out. When I've got a bit more time, I'll be able to do some things that I really want to do. When I've got a bit more, a bigger team, we can really do those passion projects. And we can really link purpose to extra and other things. But I think one of the big shifts that's happened over the last couple of years in business is that people are asking those fundamental questions of, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why do I work for this company? Why should I listen to my boss? Because actually, particularly in my industry, it might be different in your industries, but my team can go get a job almost anywhere they like right now. They're in that much demand. They could go and get, and I've got, you know, and I pay my team very well, but I know for a fact, and my team know for a fact, they can go get a job elsewhere for an extra 5, 10, 15 grand if they just want to chase the money. That's the honest truth. It's a cold-faced reality. And I work with a lot of, younger designers and developers and digital marketers, but also people older than myself are in my company as well. My non-exec is nearly 80 years old, an incredible man. But purpose has moved from just being something that's at the edge or a nice to have to, I believe, in what I'm seeing, the core of why businesses exist. And there's whole movements happening around it. Now, I want to take this from a slightly different perspective for the next few minutes. And I want to show you some results from a Harvard Business Review that came out, a study that came out a couple of years ago. Actually, I think it was before the pandemic. So this isn't a reactionary survey for the last couple of years. This data and what we're going to look at is pre-pandemic. And so Ernst & Young actually commissioned Harvard Business Review to do this. So I want to show you a few slides just quickly. And Mark Weinberger, who's the chairman and CEO of EY, says this: businesses today are finding that doing good means doing well. And these next few slides will show that doing good means doing well. That purpose in business is so intertwined with the satisfaction of staff. It's so intertwined with how clients see you. It's so intertwined with your personal brand. It's so intertwined with the trust of your brand. So intertwined with how you deliver those quality of products and services that it's not a nice to have on the side or something I'll do when I've got a bit more time and money. That it's actually a core business driver. Now, some of you might be sitting there thinking, really? Yeah, that's a nice thing to say, but does that really work? So let's look at some numbers. So we're going to the next slide, and I'm not going to go through all of these because we haven't got time. But if you look at those companies that are growing, and again, this is all Harvard Business Review data. I've not just made this up on the internet. 58% of businesses with a clearly articulated purpose. And what does that mean? That means that actually they mean what they say. They're not greenwashing, or they're not just, CSR policies and just a nice thing we do at the side. We believe in equality and diversity because we wrote it in a manual, but actually they've got core purpose clearly articulated. 58% of those people in this survey were achieving 10% plus growth as opposed to 42%. 25% of those were growing as opposed to 16%, and only 15% of businesses surveyed were flat or declining as opposed to 42%. There's a real clear, hard metric in this survey about how businesses that have got a clear purpose are growing and developing. Because business is always about one bottom line of profit, but it's actually about other bottom lines as well. And businesses with clearly defined purpose can measure more than just one bottom line, which we'll look at in a minute. If we go into the next slide. Just look at the circles on the right-hand side, I think it is. 88% of executives said that clearly articulated purpose helps increase customer loyalty. Why should I buy from you? Most of our products and services are largely similar. Most of the way we do things are largely similar. Many people in their industry are being undercut by cheaper, faster, quality of products or services. Many of us can sometimes struggle with actually maintaining margin. So why should I work with you? Because you've got a clearly defined purpose. Why? Because I trust you, because I trust your personal brand, because I look at you as a set of values and ethos and dynamic that goes over and above just your products and services. 88% of executives agree with what I've just said there. 72% of global consumers would recommend a company that has a purpose. So if you look at this from a corporation perspective, from a large corporate perspective, they actually have to now select suppliers on the basis of their policies. On the basis of what is their sustainability policy, what is their DE&I policy, what is their climate policy, all of those things. So actually, if we want to be business people and leaders that grow, not only in ourselves, but grow our organizations, we have to look at the role of purpose within that. And I'm talking about purpose, not policy. Anyone can download some policy off the internet and go, we've got a sustainability policy. That's not purpose, that's just called policy. They're very different. We can only do 1P today, and it's purpose. 84% of emerging market consumers make a cause-related purchase at least annually. Now, we haven't got time for it, but I've got a whole set of statistics. I'm a bit boring, really. I've got a whole set of statistics and numbers around a shift between millennials and Gen Z. Gen Z is the first demographic and generation that is purpose-driven. They believe in purpose before product. That's why they believe in influencers before reality. I'm not making a negative statement, I'm just making a factual statement. My children know more about Mr. Beast than they do about Mr. Boris. That's the truth. Why? Because he is one of the biggest influencers online. Why? Because they're buying into his purpose. He puts a video and he says, guys, I really want you to believe this. This is that's a terrible American accent, sorry. He doesn't talk like that. But he comes out and he'll share a purpose that they'll believe in. But us as business leaders, no, we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about it. We're too shy. We haven't defined it. And I actually believe those businesses that don't have a clearly defined purpose are going to end up really, really struggling in the next few years. Because there's a generational shift coming with consumers, with workers that are looking for that. Our staff are looking for that. I'll come on to that in a minute. Last slide on some of the stats. 88% of people say it helps to create value for customers. So many of us, as I said before, let's be honest, we struggle to demonstrate, demonstrable value sometimes with our products and services. Like at the end of the day, I run a digital creative agency, right? So does Ian, so does thousands of people. What's the difference between working with Wonderful and working with someone else? Apart from the quality of our work and our case studies, what is the difference? That actually, when you work with us, we will deliver change within your business. And we've got testimonials, awards, case studies that all back that up. That's why you should work with Wonderful. It's as simple as that. I'm very, very clear on our purpose. If you don't want that demonstrable change in your business, then you shouldn't work with Wonderful. It's very simple. So our purpose defines our sales strategy, defines our marketing strategy, defines what I'm standing here talking about. Why? Because I'm so passionate about it and I believe in it. Let's move on. 73% say it inspires innovation and positive change. So within my organization, I'll come on to that in a minute, come on to practicals in a minute. And then you can read those other two stats. Now we've got to move on very quickly. So do I drink my own Kool-Aid? What does that mean? We're a business, we've come through the pandemics, and the economic scenario, and we're still battling through business as we all are. And yet, we have had to double down as an organization on our purpose. What do we fundamentally believe? And one of the things that we've chosen to become as part of this is a B Corp company. So we're going through the B Corp certification process at the moment. We're in the interview stage. We filled in the very, very extensive questionnaire. We've changed our articles of association at Companies House. We've made formal commitments to what we do with our profits. We've had over 180 evidence points. It is a mission. And we're now at the interview stage, interview process to become a B Corp company. What does that mean? It means that everything we do as the Wonderful Group is measuring a triple bottom line of profit, of people, and planet. Should businesses measure profit? Absolutely. But is a single bottom line measurement of business good enough in this new paradigm that we live in? I don't believe it is. Now, I don't work for B Corp. I'm not advocating B Corp for every business. I'm just saying we've chosen to live out our purpose and sort of define the framework around that. So everything we do now has to have a demonstrable impact on people. People, not just our staff. I'm standing on stage, I'm going to say this, but there's actual certain suppliers that I can no longer use in our technology department because they don't align with our B Corp purpose. That's actually quite a hard thing to say, but that is the truth. So there's one particular supplier that I know does not align with the B Corp framework that we provided evidence for, so I cannot work with them anymore. So we are built, so this impacts our supply chain, this impacts the clients we work with, both positively and you've got to make a statement negatively. We can't work with them. So people, every single person that we work with as an organization in terms of suppliers, staff, other stakeholders, partners, has to align with our B Corp framework. Now you might think, isn't that really restrictive? No. It defines purpose. It delivers purpose. It means that when we work together, whoever works on your project, whether they're a developer offshore, whether they're a designer in Manchester, or whether they're a digital marketer in Maidstone, they are all aligned with the same purpose. They will deliver things the same way, the same values, the same DNA, the same purpose. We know their carbon footprint. We know what they do with their it all works in the same process. Why? Because we believe it builds a better business. Why? Because it believes it builds a much more inclusive society. Why? We believe that actually demonstrates something that's more than just a bottom line. Secondly, if we go on to the next slide, please. Why is that there? Oh, sorry, I know why that's there. Put it in last night. I've just done we've got a podcast called the Wonderful People Podcast. It's not a plug, honestly, but listen to it, it's quite good. We've just done an interview which is going live with a lady called Georgie Delaney, MBE, and she is the lady that started the great outdoor gym company, which effectively, the gyms you see in parks, you see in schools, a lot of those are her gyms. They've got 2,000 gyms across the world. We did an interview with her this week, actually, and I was blown away by how she drinks her own Kool-Aid when it comes to purpose. Everything she does, every single part of their product innovation, the way they service clients, the way they sell, who they work with, how they sell, how they partner, is driven by that purpose to enable people to understand and engage with physical exercise. Absolutely incredible. So the podcast is going live, and I'm only saying this, I'm really not trying to plug the podcast. I'm only saying it because the podcast goes live today or tomorrow, and if you want to listen to a CEO of an organization talk about how purpose drives their organization, she's absolutely brilliant. Her name's Georgie Delaney, MBE, and also I'm not getting paid by her to say it either. So move on, please. A couple more minutes. So that's the podcast. And we ask a lot of these senior marketers around their podcast, around their purpose. So we talk about digital transformation. We had an interview with the CEO of Brompton Bikes recently and a CMO of Nationwide. So big brands. And I was sitting there talking to them saying, well, how does digital transformation really look in your business? How are you actually making change? And really trying to find out how that purpose drives through their organizations. So moving on. Next slide, please. I'm just going to have to rush because of the time a little bit. So B Corp, I'm not going to go through the stats there, but one of the reasons we're becoming B Corp is because we know that not only is it going to build a better society, but it's going to build a better business. So already within my organization, when you start to say to people, okay, boys and girls, how can we really drive engagement and what can we really do that's meaningful around climate change? What can we really do that's going to help us, whether we're at home, whether we're in the office, whether we're in the shops, whether we're looking at suppliers online? What can we do that's really meaningful? And we've got a whole climate change strategy that's come from the team purely because we're measuring that as part of our purpose. You'd never think about it otherwise. We think about climate change from the big stuff, but we can all make a difference. We can all do the small things that make an incremental difference. And if we all played our part, and particularly as business people, if we all played our part, and we all did our, we would actually be the leaders of change. Rather than just expecting the government to be leaders of change, I really believe the business community is such a driver of change in society, and we should be leading the change on people, on planet, and on profit. So moving on. So just a couple of things just to come to land. Couple of slides. So these three people here are three people that in 2022, so last year and this year, had no access into the industry. They had no way of getting into the industry. They'd all done degrees, or two of them had done the degrees, one of them hadn't, finished school after GCSEs, and were desperate to get into the industry. And so two of them came to us through a Kickstarter program. Do you remember the government Kickstarter program? And we took them on as Kickstarter interns, worked with them for 6 months. And again, I'd love to share the story in more detail, but I haven't got time. Temi is now a trainee journalist at the Kent Messenger. Daniel is a digital research executive at a big agency called OMD. And Izzy, we took her on. She was a nursery worker with a real passion for marketing. So we took her on part-time, trained her up for 3 months. She went and got a job at another digital agency, and we fed her into the agency because we never had a role for her at the time. So we fed her into the agency. So within 3 months, she'd gone from nursery worker, literally saying, this is the rest of my life, but I love digital. But knowing nothing, we trained her up and she's gone straight in, not at grad level, at an exec level. And she's already got clients. And so I really believe for us, I mean, I'm just giving you 3 examples there of young people that have come into the industry that we've given an opportunity to. And I believe as leaders and as business people, it's part of our role and responsibility to empower the next generation. We might not all be able to give them internships or apprenticeships or whatever it might be, but there's been government schemes, there's been Kickstarter schemes, there's apprenticeship schemes coming out. There's lots of different ways we can give people work experience, because if we don't lead the next generation in this purpose-driven business, then what message are they meant to pick up? And I actually believe it's a responsibility as a business leader to actually lead. I know it sounds silly, but to lead in more than just the profit bottom line, but to lead in, whether you call it triple bottom line, however you define it is up to you. But I really believe it's our responsibility as leaders to actually empower and release the next generation. Because we can't just expect a government Kickstarter scheme to come through and we do nothing about it, and then we moan that we don't have any young workers. Apprenticeship programs to come through and we do nothing about it and moan that we haven't got good staff. It's our responsibility to train them. It's our responsibility to empower them. Next slide. As we come to land, I've got so many more stories I'd love to tell you. One really practical thing that we're doing with our team is called a Giki score. G-I-K-I. So with our team, every single team member has their own carbon footprint score, and we use this program called Giki, where it gives us suggestions and recommendations for things we can do at home, for things we can do with our shopping, for things we can do in our daily lives that enable us to build a better carbon footprint. And we gamify it a little bit and we reward it a little bit just to make it fun. But you know, the whole team are engaged around this Giki score thing at the moment, you know, and it's just kind of, again, it's another thing that we do that just engages them in purpose. Why? Because purpose isn't just what I want them to do, it's what they want to do. It's empowering them in their passions and their purpose. So we give our team extra volunteering days. We've got a charitable foundation, which is very active. We say to them, hey, you go and do your thing. If it's actually going to help you in your mental, particularly working from home, your mental health, emotional health, how can we best serve you and help you in your purpose there? And we've seen some incredible things happen, which I haven't got time to go through loads of stories now. But yeah, just I thought I'd throw that in there. It's quite a practical thing to do. Next couple of slides, very quickly. So we have a charitable foundation called the Wonderful Foundation, where we support projects in the UK and across the world. And again, our team get involved in that. So we've got people that are working with, what picture is that? Yeah, that's a daycare centre in India. We support in the Andhra Pradesh region in India. That's a water well in Folombe province in Malawi that we support. That's built around an orphanage. And so our guys, when they come to work at Wonderful, our team, they're engaged in actually empowering people across the world as well as the UK. We do quite a few projects in the UK as well with in the homeless area and in empowering young people as well. So when you come to work at Wonderful, we're saying, listen, we want you to believe that you can make a difference. We want you to believe you can make a change. Part of your skills, part of your time resource, part of your skill resource, our financial resource. Why do you want that project to be delivered on time and on budget? Why? Because it delivers profit. And then what do we do with that profit? 10% of that profit goes into the foundation. What does that work do? It does that. So every time a designer does something well and on time and on budget, it impacts lives in the UK and abroad. That ain't smart. We can all do that. This isn't some kind of like amazing thing we've got here. We can all do that if we all put purpose at the center of our business. So next slide. So the question is, what are we going to do with it? We opened with that question, and I want to close with that question. You know, one day our businesses, we're going to retire, our businesses, our careers are going to be finished, and the real question is, how do we want to live? And I want to encourage you, if you haven't got that purpose piece in the middle of your organization, one of the takeaways from today is to go away and define your organizational purpose. What is my real North Star? What is it I really believe can happen in me and through me as a leader and as a business? And then how can I deliver that? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. That was great. That was wonderful. Okay, so we're going to have a break now. You can have teas, coffees, and then we will be back about 11:30 for the next session. Okay?
together.